Welcome to the Lorenzo Mission Institute. This is the home of the initial missionary formation of the members of the Lorenzo Ruiz Mission Society. It is one of the seminaries of the Archdiocese of Manila, which is found within the San Carlos Seminary Pastoral Formation Complex, located in Barangay Guadalupe Viejo, Makati City. It is situated a few steps away from the San Carlos Seminary, which was established as an institution in 1702, and it is also located a few meters away from the Holy Apostle Senior Seminary, which was founded in 1985. The Lorenzo Mission Institute as a seminary was built in 1987 through the inspiring initiative of Jaime Cardinal Sin, who was the Archbishop of Manila that time. It was established on the same year when Lorenzo Ruiz de Manila, the first Filipino saint, was canonized by John Paul II. Thus, the name of the seminary was after his name, Saint Lorenzo Ruiz. The Lorenzo Mission Institute is a house of missionary formation, seeking to provide sufficient priestly and missionary formation for the seminarians and form them to provide the spiritual needs of the people of our times. They are reared to do mission work, both the Filipino-Chinese and the Filipino communities in the Philippines, and those beyond the shores of the country as well. The missionary formation and thrust of the Lorenzo Mission Institute got its spirit and inspiration from 7 integral sources. The first source: the historical antecedents of the Filipino-Chinese apostolate. The seminary is a sign of the continuing fulfillment of the dream which the pioneering missionaries of the Philippines had initiated. It is a continuation of a missionary vision and work of the first missionaries who arrived in the Philippines in the 16th century and desired to establish a focused mission of evangelization among the Chinese who were already in many parts of the country before they came. With the intention of mission and evangelization by the Church, the apostolate was formally begun by the first Bishop of Manila, Domingo de Salazar. In his mind, both the Filipino and the Chinese cultures constitute fascinating and unique features which were worth appreciating. On his appointment to be the Bishop of Manila in 1579 by Pope Gregory XIII, he did not have much hesitation to accept the office because of his missionary thrust and spirit and the enthusiasm to bring the gospel to China. He said, "One of the reasons which made me accept this bishopric was the fact that these islands are near China. For a long time I have had the conversion of that kingdom at heart, and with that thought I came to these islands." When he arrived in the Philippines in September 1581, he felt a strong desire to evangelize the Chinese in the Philippines because of what he saw. He said, "When I arrived, most of the Sanglis were almost forgotten, thrown into a corner with no thought about their conversion, for nobody knew their language, nor did anybody start learning it, due to its great difficulty, and also because the religious found here were busy working in the ministry of the natives." So he wrote King Philip II on September 20, 1594 saying, "Since I suffered greatly to see that a people such as these would have no ministers who could teach and indoctrinate them in their own language, I tried to arrange with Don Gonzalo Ronquillo to put them apart in a place by themselves, and give them ministers to learn the language, and teach them in their place." The second source: the hard work and achievements of the Chinese priests and missionaries. The Filipino-Chinese apostolate became a fruitful accomplishment of the missionaries and Chinese priests, especially those who came from China in 1948. Recalling those times, the Chinese seminarians arrived in the Philippines, following the political and religious problems in the mainland. They pursued a continued seminary formation, until many of them became priests, and began to initiate projects, and improve the Chinese apostolate in the Philippines. They established parishes, and founded schools for the education of the Filipino-Chinese children. The third source: the church leaders. These were the church leaders in the Philippines, who helped shape the Filipino-Chinese apostolate. First, Bishop Domingo de Salazar. He was the first bishop of Manila. He initiated the evangelization program for the Chinese in the Philippines in the 16th century. The apostolate was seen as an important thrust of the church leaders until today. Second, Archbishop Michael J. O'Doherty. In 1924, Archbishop Michael J. O'Doherty continued to make Binondo as the base for missionary work among the Chinese in Manila. Third, Bishop Juan B. Velasco. He was the Bishop of Xiamen, but was appointed as the National Director of the Apostolate by the Sacred Consistorial Congregation for the Chinese Missions in the Philippines in 1959. Fourth, Archbishop Rufino J. Cardinal Santos. The support of Archbishop Rufino J. Cardinal Santos was remarkable in the improvement of the mission among the Chinese in the Philippines, when he delegated the mission among the Chinese in Manila to the care of Bishop Juan B. Velasco. Fifth, Jaime Cardinal Sin and the Archbishops of Manila. Jaime Cardinal Sin took the initiative of establishing the Lorenzo Mission Institute in 1987 in response to the pressing need and the exigency of priests in the Filipino-Chinese apostolate. The Archbishops of Manila in the past, present, and in the future will always be part of the Lorenzo Mission Institute. The fourth source. Saint John Paul II. Saint John Paul II, who was the second Roman pontiff to come to the Philippines, had a great impact on the vision and mission of the Lorenzo Mission Institute. He encouraged the Church in the Philippines to be a herald of the good news in Asia and to the world. On February 18, 1981, he encouraged the Christian Chinese communities to be missionaries by living out the faith. He said, "If you maintain that spirit, and if you live inspired by the Christian faith and strengthened by the specifically Chinese moral traditions, you will in a profound way be truly Christian and truly Chinese, and contribute to the richness of the whole Church." He was the first pope to visit the Lorenzo Mission Institute when he came for the 10th World Youth Day in 1995. The fifth source is the Second Plenary Council of the Philippines. The council that was convened in 1991 became a moment of a new fervor for the Lorenzo Mission Institute as the Church in the Philippines pursues a new intensified missionary direction in Asia. In the Acts and Decrees of the Second Plenary Council of the Philippines, paragraph 109, it states, "And here on our own land is a vast field of mission related to the Filipino-Chinese apostolate. The progress made in evangelizing through the educational and pastoral work of the Filipino-Chinese apostolate is a great encouragement. We need to intensify this." The sixth source is Saint Lorenzo Ruiz de Manila. The life and martyrdom of Saint Lorenzo Ruiz was an inspiring element of mission. There are three important things in Saint Lorenzo Ruiz that instill a missionary inspiration in every member of the Lorenzo Mission Institute. First, he was a Filipino-Chinese. Second, he lived a simple life serving the Church in Binondo. And third, he became a martyr in Japan. He said, "If I have 1,000 lives, I would give them all to God." The seventh source is the signs of the times. Without the Church's discerning capacity to scrutinize the signs of the times, it would be impossible to establish the Chinese apostolate in the Philippines, as well as to think about building the Lorenzo Mission Institute. It is inspiring to note that the Holy Spirit animates the Church and empowers it to read the signs of the times. The Lorenzo Mission Institute is indeed a grace of God, a gift to the Church, and a blessing for the mission of the people of God. It exists for relevance, competence, and the urgency of mission. It values the four pillars of priestly formation, namely, the human, the spiritual, the intellectual, and the pastoral formation of seminarians. So, let us live in Jesus, be mindful of the mission of the Church, and be part of the Lorenzo Mission Institute. Support and pray for missionaries all over the world.